Please be advised, if you have not seen the movie that is about to be reviewed in this video, stop this video right now, go and watch the movie and then come back, because there are going to be massive plot spoilers throughout the course of this video. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope everybody is enjoying themselves with whatever they are doing. That was a 2-point shot. Woohoo! So we are this week we are on Scream 4, directed by once again by Wes Craven and written by Kevin Williamson, who wrote Scream 1 and 2. So there's going to be a lot of the usual, teen drama sort of stuff thrown in. I didn't realize actually until I was watching the last video how much I use my hands a lot. I didn't realize this until I was watching the last video. But so you're going to get used to it. Sorry, but you're going to get used to me using my hands a lot. So coming out in 2011, this sort of came out in the time where, especially with horror, reboots and remakes were becoming a regular thing. Like we had Rob Zombie's takes on Halloween. We had the Friday the 13th remake. We had, A Nightmare on Elm Street. This all came around, that mid to late 2000s. Now, a lot of people will say, "Oh, yeah, it's a reboot of like the original Scream trilogy." Yes, it is, because it focuses on a new group of characters, but it still revolves around the core three of Sidney, Dewey, and Gale. So this is my opinion anyway, Scream 4 is not a soft reboot. It's not a remake of any kind. It's a sequel. It's a direct sequel to Scream 3. One of the main reasons that I think a lot of people sort of are saying, like, bring it up is like a excuse me, frog in the throat, is that because like reboot and remake gets used quite a lot in this movie, and I think, to me, it just sort of shed a bit of a light on what was happening in the horror genre at that time. Yes, there were a lot of reboots. Yes, there were a lot of remakes. As I said, to me, Scream 4 is it's a sequel. It's not a reboot. It's not a remake. It's not a soft reboot. It's a sequel. So we kick it all off. We've got the usual sort of, the teens are standing around watching movies. No, they're not watching it in this stage. They're talking about movies. We get the traditional Scream phone call. What's your favorite scary movie and all of that. There's a few meta references in there, like, parts being cut, literally, being left on the cutting room floor, literally. I'll get to that. So we've got the the killer chasing, the cliche of, the blonde with the big chest. There's like, oh, I've got 100 and something or rather IQ, but she still ends up acting rather dumb. So it does end up like the stereotypical blonde in a horror movie. But still, it's like, oh, it's like, this is really interesting. This is like so pumped up, you're hyped, and it's a fake out. It's the opening for Stab 6. It's like, oh, okay. So we jump to, a couple of people sitting on a couch watching Stab 6. One of them being Anna Paquin, who a lot of us, especially from my generation, anyway, would know as Rogue from the X-Men. A lot of, I know quite a few people as well, though, would know her as the True Blood chick. I can't remember the name of the character. I'm sorry. Please write down in the comments just like the name of the character. I felt actually bad as well in the third one because I forgot the character's name for Randy's sister. I just referred to her as Randy's sister. I forgot her name. So, and she starts going on about, you know, this is the predictability of the way a lot of horror movies do go. At times, yes, they can be very, very predictable. In a way, say you got a group of people, it's like, let's split up, gang. That is probably the worst Freddy from Scooby-Doo impression, but you get the idea. And eventually, you know, you see them all get picked off one by one, except for the final girl, who then you all cheer for when she gets the final victory or gets away, which is always good to have those feel-good moments. It's always good. And a lot of the predictable cliches, you know, you have sex, you're going to die. You drink, you do drugs, you're going to die. Don't say, I'll be right back. And, you know, all the usual sort of tropes. It gets way too predictable. But then there's a little, and even the use of jump scares too can get a little bit predictable in a lot of the modern stuff. Not that's a bad thing, but when it gets overused, it actually becomes a bad thing. But then, you know, we get the surprise of the friend who's just getting so sick and tired of hearing horror movies getting bad mouth, just stabs her in the guts. It's like, did you see that coming? It's like, if you're watching this for the first time, so you're thinking, oh, wow, you know, this is how it's opened up. This is really, really intense. And then stab 7 is like a second fake out. We get to the actual opening scene, which at the time, if you're only watching it for the first time, you'd be thinking, oh, is this another fake out sort of thing? This time it is not a fake out. We get the killer chase down, and this is actually like a really, really good use of the technology at the time, because now, you know, there's this Ghostface voice changer app where you can crank call people and say, what's your favorite scary movie? And, you know, just do all the Ghostface sort of stuff. That idea in itself is really, really cool. I don't know why they didn't market it for the movie's release. That would have been so good. But after saying that and just thinking about it all, and my buddy Ned, he would be ringing me up all the time, just going, what's your favorite scary movie, J-boy? And I'm gonna gut you and all that. I know he'd do that. It'd be funny, but I know he'd do it. And so yeah, this is when we get, oh, her bit got cut, and you know, we had to leave her on the cutting room floor. It's like the suspense builds and builds, you know. You know, we see the victim get flung through the window, and yeah, sure enough, she her bit got cut. All right, she's got this massive gash across the sternum, and then we get to the Scream 4 title card, which is really, really, I really like it, because not only do they have the mask in the background, they've also got it as, you know, Scream 4, and the A in Scream is actually the 4, so that's kind of cool. Yeah, it's a good use of modern tech throughout it. Yes, the opening can be a little bit cliched, but I did love, you know, the fake outs were just so cool. So we flash forward to Sydney. You know, everyone knows Sydney, the champion heroine from Scream 1, 2, and 3, the final girl, is now a successful author, and she's on the last stop of her book tour for Out of Darkness, which is pretty much like her experiences and everything that she went through during, you know, not only just the Woodsboro murders, but then you had, you know, Windsor College, and then, you know, the movie stuff. And like that's really, really good. And there is like a perfect promotional thing that they sort of skipped out on as well, because, you know, a lot of times with movies, they will have like a novelization sort of a promotional novelization to sort of come out with it. And I think if they'd actually written that story out and released it, like Out of Darkness by Sidney Prescott, and used that as sort of extra sort of canon to Scream 4, there is a absolutely perfect promotional marketing tool that they could have utilized. Probably didn't get thought about at the time. It's probably never really been thought about until now, really. But yeah, Sydney returns to Woodsboro. Final stop on her tour, and we jump and we see Dewey and Gail, who've been happily married for 10 years. Unfortunately, though, at this point, David Arquette and Courteney Cox in real life had started to split. Bit of a shame, but that's sort of the way it goes in these sorts of things. But again, Dewey is now the sheriff of Woodsboro. He's the head honcho of the police force. One thing that really bugged me is in Scream 3, because this really screwed up the continuity a little bit. But we remember in Scream 1, Dewey gets stabbed in the back and suffers a severed nerve, which is why in Scream 2 you see him walking around. He's got with a limp. He's got his arm draped across his chest because that's about as far as he can move it. Scream 3, that's, the limp's still there a little bit, but the arms, everything's back to normal and fine. Nothing happened. Nothing. No, in this one, he's like, nothing happened. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical expert, but severed nerves don't heal. Once they're done, once they're cut, they cut. That's it. They don't re-heal, as far as I know. As I said, I'm not a medical expert. So there's a little bit of a continuity sort of issue there. Gail is now retired from the media and she's trying to write a new book, but is suffering from a very, very severe case of writer's block. At this point, this is where we meet the new characters. We have Jill, who is Sydney's cousin. Surprised there was never a reference in the previous movies, but we'll cover this. We also have Kirby and Olivia. We also have a new deputy as well. Deputy Judy is she flirts a little bit with Dewey, like bakes him like lemon squares and other sort of baked goods and that, and she does sort of flirt with him a little bit. We have two new Randys, who again, like, this is 2011, so technology. This is where my tongue stops working. Technology is more advanced to what it was, 10, 15 years ago. So one of the Randys, I've forgotten the character's name, so I'll just refer to them as the Randys, the film geeks, are live streaming everything that goes on with their day, like what happens during the school day, the meetings and everything else that goes on afterwards. We also get a use of social media as well, because this is where social media like Facebook and Twitter are really sort of taking off, because word of the students' murders from the night before have just gone viral. It spread like wildfire. Everyone's talking about it before it can even be announced that, hey, this is something that has happened. And again, we get a little throwback to the first one. This is where the murder weapon and a phone has been found in the back of Sydney's car. Blood smeared all over promotional poster is the "Everybody's a Suspect" throwback to Randy in the first movie. We get to the high school and we have a little bit of the teen drama sort of stuff, and I can see a little bit why a lot of people sort of think it's a bit of a reboot, a bit of a remake, because we've got Jill and Trevor. For some reason, I don't know why, in a lot of movies in the late 2000s, the character that's a complete and total dick is always named Trevor. Don't know why. They're sort of the new Sydney and Billy. They're having the relationship issues and lack of trust and everything else. these two had actually sort of previously split because Trevor had actually cheated on Jill and whatever else. Don't do that. Cheating's bad. So yeah, I can sort of see why a lot of people would say it's a reboot, but overall, it is still the Sydney. It's still Sydney. It's still the Sydney story. There's a scene where, again, it's another homage to the original Scream, where we've got, instead of a group of people watching a movie, we've got Jill and her friend Kirby who are watching Shaun of the Dead. I say it's a throwback because in the first movie they're watching the original Halloween at the Mecca farm, where everything turns to shit and everything goes south really fast. Of course, then we get the phone call. It's like, oh, how's the movie? It's like, oh, what movie? The killer says, well, Shaun of the Dead. He's like, oh, I'm in the closet. And it's like, oh, is he really in the closet? But then it's you sort of think, nah, that's too. Then it's like, oh, you sort of think, nah, that's a little bit too predictable. But because a lot of times you see in movies, they throw up in the closet, and nobody's in there. So it would actually be an interesting twist if, and they actually did this in Halloween, the 2018. Sequel, that there's nothing in the closet, open up and there's Michael. That would have been a really, really cool twist. I don't really think it's been utilized before that, but I say a lot. But no, it's nobody there, and then we get the I didn't say I was in your closet. And it's like, well, how they, and so he jumps out of Olivia's closet, who he's hiding in all the times. They were on the phone to her. She had the phone on speaker. So he's heard, that they're watching Shaun of the Dead. And yeah, it's a bye-bye for Olivia. So we jump to the school. They're having the cinema club with the two Randys after Gail sort of costed them, say, you work with me, I'll give you whatever you want. I'll bring Sydney. Okay, so she brings Sydney. And they start talking about the rules of the remakes, where you pretty much have to up everything. You've got to up the ante of everything, go further and beyond. And everything, and how to, if you want to actually be successful and get away with it, you broadcast everything in real time instead of a discovery being made. It's like this, that people are watching and they actually see this happen, which is, sometimes life imitates art. And we had that horrible thing a couple of years ago in New Zealand, but we're not going to talk about that. And so they're talking about the Stabathon get together they do every year, which is where they watch all stab movies back to back to back to back to back. Everyone gets together, I get shit faced, and Gail has this bright idea of, these guys have got an interesting thing about broadcasting and everything in real time and all that. I'm going to place cameras around and see what I can find, because I'm going to try and solve this thing on my own, seeing as Dewey's not going to help. So she goes to the Stabathon, disguised as Ghostface, and is planting cameras and everything around. Of course, Gail gets attacked. She gets stabbed in the shoulder. Manages to get away. Dewey is a terrible shot. Dewey comes along just in time, and yeah, I can sort of get, in a way, you're seeing, especially your wife being attacked, your adrenaline's going to be running through the roof. You can't sort of focus properly, but he's a terrible shot. This is the way it is. So Gail gets taken to the hospital. They then go to Kirby's house, where they have a little sit down. I think I've skipped something here, but we'll keep going. They go to watch Stab 7. Trevor turns up and is like, oh, you know, Jill messaged me to say, come here. It's like, well, no, I didn't. You know, you get the usual teen suspense sort of thing. The two cops that are stationed nearby, they get it. Like, they get killed off. The first one is a little bit lackluster because, like, he just gets stabbed in the back. But the second one, this is so insanely brutal. He just basically gets stabbed through the skull. And, you know, you see him walking around, get out, flaming around, like trying to, come on. But eventually, you know, he succumbs and falls down dead. So, we're at the final house, Kirby's house again. Ghostface attacks. One of the Randys is killed off while streaming. So he's basically streamed his own death, really. And then we get the usual. Then we get the trivia game between Kirby and Longhaired Randy, where Longhaired Randy is tied up like Stephen Orth was in the first movie, and Kirby is playing the role of Casey Becker. But eventually actually gets the questions right, so she thinks like, oh, you know, I've beaten the guy, I've won. She goes out to save Longhaired Randy, and it turns out, you know, he's actually one of the killers. Bum bum bum. Oh my God. So poor Kirby, you know, she gets got, and then, of course, here comes Ghostface, or who then reveals themselves to be Sydney's cousin Jill. Okay, this is actually a very, very interesting twist, because the whole time they're painting Jill up to be the final girl. You know, the survivor, the one that, you know, outsmarts the killer and gets away. But no, she's the one that's actually doing that. And the motivation is she's pretending to play the victim so she can be like her older cousin Sydney and become famous. That's it. She wants to be famous. As far as motivations go, that's shit. That is like one of the worst motivations out there. If you're doing it for revenge, or, you know, something like that, yeah, okay. But to be famous is just like a bit, oh, come on, really? It's cheesy. That's probably one of my only nitpicks for this whole movie, because again, like the other Scream movies, it's a fun movie to watch. So Jill stabs Sid. Sydney's down. You know, Jill's thinking, you know, Sydney's dead. I'm one of the lone survivors. We get Longhaired Randy going, this is going to be so good, you know, we're the two survivors. Like, oh no, this is a sole survivor thing, and, you know, he gets killed. So then we go to the Jill inflicts a lot of damage to herself. Like, she rams a knife into her shoulder. She takes a WWE style back bump through a glass table. It would make any wrestler happy. Like, they'd be going, wow, that is a perfect back bump. And she sort of learns, you know, oh, Sydney's actually still alive. She's not dead. And Jill's going, oh fuck. So she's still trying to play the victim. As soon as Dewey's out of the picture, she goes to kill Sid. But she lets slip, because she knows Gal's there too. It's like, oh, you know, we'd be able to write the book together, you know, saying, because we've got, you know, we now have matching wounds. Dewey's not thinking too much of it. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, yep, fine. But when he says this to Gail, it's like, she's the one that she's clicked before Dewey. As soon as he said that, she's like, oh, she was stabbed in the shoulder too? He's like, yeah. It's like, how did she know I was? And that's when the light bulb finally goes off in Dewey's head. It's like, oh shit, you know, this is the chick, this is the one that's done it all. So we have sort of the the climax in the intensive care unit where Jill attacks Sid. In comes Dewey. Again, as a bit of a comic relief, he makes his presence known running down the hallway, screaming, Sid, Sid. He gets bludgeoned with a bedpan. Again, comic relief. Oh, excuse me. This is terrible. I think I've burped like 3 times in this video. And so in comes Deputy Judy, in comes Gail. They all get accosted. Sid gets creative. I don't think there's been a movie so far where there's been a takedown by a defibrillator. Like Gail's pleading, let me have, one last word. And it's like, oh, what's it going to be? Is it going to be this, going to be that? And I was like, oh, clear. It's like, clear. And then, Sydney pops up with the paddles, clear. Fries Jill's brain. Of course, we get the usual, they always come back, so Jill gets gunned down. And, we get this really sort of touching image in a way. We've got, Jill's laying down dead. She's, caused all this chaos and everything and killed people. Sydney lays down next to her and sort of shares this like sweet, touching moment. But they do actually punch on the first rule of remakes. And this is what Sydney tells Jill before she shoots her. The first rule of remakes is do not mess with the original. And yeah, that's probably the one thing you can take away, which is a note that I think anyone who's thinking, oh, I'll do a remake of this classic or this classic, don't mess with the original, because you are going to upset a lot of fans that grew up with the originals. You see it all the time, especially in horror. I might do a topic on that at a later date. We'll see. But yeah, that is Scream 4. Again, another enjoyable movie. I love all 4 Scream movies. They are definitely one of my my favorites of the 90s, definitely. So next week we're gonna go a little bit lighthearted more in a way. I'm going to do the 1986 Transformers animated movie, which is the best one out of all of them. Out of all the Transformers movies, that one is the best. And also, that one will also be the premiere of an adjoining podcast as well. So for those of you who have sort of been putting off watching these videos because you don't have time to sit down and watch a video on YouTube, there's going to be the podcast available for those that want to hear that as well. So I look forward to bringing you that one next week, and I shall see you next time. Thanks for checking out this video, guys. If you like it, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, you hit that subscribe, and you ding that notification cowbell. For any other reviews you want to look at, I will put links up here, and maybe one there. Also, the links to my socials will be down in the description box below, and I shall see you all next time.